What's up everyone, James here again, and today, with the end of 2020 upon us, I thought it would be a good time to take a look back at the year we've just been through and see what we can learn from it. Let's just be honest. This year did not go as planned. I'm sure if you look back at the predictions we made for 2020, almost none of them came to pass. But that's okay, because we've survived. You're watching this right now, means you're alive, you have air in your lungs, you're still pushing your creativity to see what you can come up with. We've done a lot this year, and I want to take all of the bad and find the good. So here are some lessons that you can carry with you into 2021 and beyond. First and most obvious, always have a backup plan. Now, this is a big picture lesson here in 2020 because I know a lot of you went into the year planning to tour a lot or put out a big album with a huge promotional rollout, which probably included a lot of the live performances. And then March 13th happened. And after March 13th, live music was incredibly rare, and it remains that way today, and nobody really knows when it's going to return to its original form. So you need to have a backup plan. The artists that have gotten the most out of 2020 are those who were able to pivot quickly. And I'm willing to bet that not all of them had backup plans before March 13th, but they thought on their feet. They came up with a new way to promote their music, a new way to engage with their fans, whether that be committing to Twitch or something else, and they just kept going. They didn't let that hold them back, which brings me to my second lesson. The second big takeaway from this year is that the music business doesn't stop. Now, there were a lot of musicians and labels who kind of hit the brakes when March 13th happened. Once all live music was put on hold, there were releases that were shelved, some of which still are not out, and there were artists who booked studio time that ended up canceling that because they just didn't know if they would be able to afford it due to touring or whatever else happened to be the case. But the industry did not stop. I mean, just 2 weeks after the coronavirus hit, we had The Weeknd dropping one of the year's most successful albums. I mean, just this week, Spotify announced that he was one of the top 5 most streamed artists in the world, and his record came out right after the pandemic. People wanted music. Even though the world can be a calamitous place, there can be war, there can be chaos of unforeseen kinds. People still want music. People still want to engage with either their favorite artists or discover new music. They want that comfort listening, but they also want something new. They want the distraction that art provides. And what we've learned in 2020 is that no matter what comes, hell or high water, there is always going to be a music business. There's always going to be people who want to listen to music, who want to enjoy it, who want to partake in it in whatever way they can. And if concerts aren't possible, live streams are an option. I mean, that's a revenue stream that didn't really exist before this year in any significant way, and now everyone is doing it. The industry does not stop, so you can't let things that have a setback in your life prevent you from continuing to chase your dreams. Maybe you're a full-time artist who after this year had to go and find another line of work. You had to find a way to provide for your family, but that hasn't stopped you, or at least I hope it hasn't. And in the future, when you encounter setbacks, whether it be losing a member, losing a deal, or a global pandemic, I hope that you find a way to keep going. Because if we've learned anything this year, it's that the industry isn't going to stop. It doesn't wait for anybody, and it especially doesn't wait for your dreams. So you just have to keep going. You have the ability. You've already done it if you've made it this far. So nothing else can stop you, or at least it shouldn't. The third big lesson from 2020, which I feel we learn every year in a different way, is that connection is everything. We have more opportunities to connect with people than we've ever had in the history of human civilization. We have the internet, which has given us Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, Twitch, YouTube, and a million other services, Reddit, for example, or Discord. And then you have the ability to actually go out and see people when that's allowed. But there are countless ways to connect with people. And in 2020, artists have learned more than ever the value of a meaningful connection with their fans. It's not about just promoting the thing that you're working on. It's not about just advertising and marketing yourself all the time. It's about putting yourself out there. Being vulnerable, sharing your journey with your fans, not just the journey of making music, but your journey as a human being trying to figure out this weird thing called existence. It's the artists who are able to just be vulnerable with their fans that have really gotten the most out of this year because their fans wanted to share their own vulnerabilities with that artist. They tuned into the Twitch streams or they interacted with them on social media apps like Twitter and Instagram. When they saw the artist posting about their struggles or how radically their life has changed, fans then shared how their lives have changed. And through the sharing of our individual journeys, we forge connections that can last a lifetime. When those artists then put out new music or started talking about working on stuff, people were more excited because they felt closer to their favorite musicians than ever before. And this is a lesson that we can carry with us into the future. Even when we get back to quote unquote normal life with touring all the time and the ability to do meetups with fans, it's still going to be about forging a real connection, a lasting connection, something that feels akin to friendship but isn't quite that, because let's be honest, it's still a business at the end of the day, but you still need that connection. It is everything, not just in the music business, but in life itself. And when the ways that we connect are strained, be it by a global pandemic or sickness or whatever, we can still find ways to get out there and put ourselves out there, whether it be posting a tweet that's just a few text lines on a screen, or if it's a photo on Instagram from better days or dark days or whatever we're doing that specific day. There's still a way to get out there, put yourself out there, and be real with your audience. And when you're real with them, they'll want to be real with you. And when they feel comfortable sharing themselves with you the way that you share yourself with them, that's where the magic happens. But as I just said, this is still a business. And perhaps the lesson that I learned the most in 2020 is about the need to diversify your revenue streams. Up until 2020, there were a lot of artists who were relatively happy going on the road, selling merch, recording music, and then getting streaming royalties or whatever album sales they could muster. And while all those things are still great, 2020 has taught us that we need more revenue streams. Whatever you can find that makes sense to you and doesn't alienate your fan base too much, go for it. Whether that means having a Patreon account where you basically build a fan club and people pay a monthly subscription based on what they're able to give, or Twitch streams where people can just donate money while they watch you and you make money from advertising, YouTube channels, whatever it happens to be. As a musician, there are countless ways to monetize your career, and it's worth pursuing as many of them as you're comfortable with. Now, if something feels really outside of your realm, like if you're not somebody who's really comfortable sitting in front of the camera as much as somebody on YouTube or Twitch might, then you don't need those channels, but there are still other ways to diversify your revenue streams, and you need a lot of them. If you read books about how people make a lot of wealth, they'll tell you that you need something like 5 to 7 revenue streams. And that's no guarantee that you will actually become wealthy, but it's this way of just making sure you always have something in the works that is making money for you and hopefully preserving your ability to continue doing what you love in the future. So as we head into the years ahead, think about this all the time. How can we diversify what we're doing without demanding too much of our fans, without putting too much pressure on ourselves to constantly be working, but while continuing to build up our ability to continue chasing our dreams? So if you are a musician who is recording and putting music out there, so you already have streaming revenue, you have album sales, you have tour revenue, you have merch sales from your tour revenue. That's 4 streams right there, but how else can you do it? I think fan clubs are always going to be a way of the future. Whether you do that through Patreon or the new thing that Squarespace just put out, that's another one. Maybe live streams. Live streams can be a 6th form of income. Then if you also get into the world of Twitch or YouTube, that can be a revenue stream. There are a million ideas out there, so find what works for you and don't be afraid to try it. It's all about experimentation, trial and error. You won't know what works until you give it a try, so put yourself out there and diversify. And look, maybe you're out there thinking, I don't really care that much about making money, I just want to make music. And I make good music, or at least music that I believe is good, and that should be enough. But I think one of the big lessons in 2020 is that being good at music isn't really good enough for the music industry anymore. I mean, look at all the artists who were really big breakout names this year, whether it's somebody who kind of came up in the indie traditional label system like Phoebe Bridgers, or somebody like 24kGoldn who blew up on TikTok. Their abilities expand beyond the realm of just making good music. In the case of 24kGoldn, he found a way to make songs that really connected with the audience on TikTok, and they helped push him to the forefront of music. I mean, his song Mood has been in the top 10 for weeks at this point. And Phoebe Bridgers, well, she's an indie success story. She was recording and working within the system, but the reason that she's become such a big name in music and that she has Grammy nominations and all of that goes beyond just making good music. It's because she's built up this presence online where people feel like they know her. Her music is already honest, but then in the social world, she's taken that one step further, be it through being honest with her fans or some form of self-parody in the comedic clips that she makes or just her voice in the social space. She's always putting herself out there in an interesting way, and whether or not she admits it, she's kind of a genius digital marketer in that way. And what I've learned from watching both of those artists, as well as many more succeed this year, is that just being good at music isn't good enough. And I know that that can be hard to hear, but if you really want to make a career out of this industry, you've got to bring more to the table now. There are millions, and I mean literally millions of musicians vying for attention all the time, and there's only so many ways that you can really establish yourself to be a prominent artist these days. So putting yourself out there and doing more than just making good music is important. That means making quality content along with it, being super engaging online with your fans, finding some way to make yourself stand out as unique. I know an artist right now who's developing really good songs, but is also trying to make their fans more mindful and bringing their understanding of mindfulness and meditation and therapy into how they present themselves, into their overall branding. And it's creating a lot more opportunities for them that is helping turn heads in the music industry, which is ultimately what you're trying to do. So again, good music alone is not enough. You've got to come up with more skills. Just like you need to diversify your revenue streams, you need to diversify your skill set. You need to be able to do more. Not so much that it comes at a sacrifice to the quality of your music, but just enough that it gives you a little bit more in your promotional arsenal. That's really what you're trying to achieve. And finally for right now at least, I think 2020 has proven the 1,000 fan theory. Because I know some of you have watched the other things that I've said in this video and you thought, I don't need to be a Billboard chart topping artist. I don't need to be somebody that can fill stadiums. I want to make a decent living performing the music that I love. And if that is you, then I believe that you need to commit yourself to the 1,000 fan theory. Now, you've probably heard this term thrown around, but let's review for anyone that hasn't. This theory is that if you want to be a working artist in any medium, music or otherwise, all you really need is 1,000 true fans. And what are true fans? Well, to give you the actual definition from the original theory, a true fan is defined as someone who will purchase anything and everything you produce. They will drive 200 miles to see you sing. They will buy the super deluxe reissued high-res box set of your stuff even though they have the low-res version. They will have a Google alert set for your name. They bookmark the eBay page where you put out-of-print editions. They come to your openings. They have you sign their copies. They buy the t-shirt and the mug and the hat. They can't wait till you issue your next work. They are true fans. Now, the big idea behind the 1,000 true fans theory is that if you can get 1,000 people who are willing to give you $100 over the course of a calendar year, then your income, your gross income, would be $100,000, which is far more than the average musician is making right now. So that can be a manageable goal. And in today's age, with all the different ways that you can engage your audience and build a following, 1,000 fans is not unrealistic. If you look at Spotify, it's easy to get caught up in things like monthly follower count or monthly listeners, where people will have like 8 million monthly listeners and you'll think, I can never reach those numbers. I'll never see that kind of streaming revenue. But again, you don't really need that streaming revenue if you have 1,000 people who are willing to buy your album and buy your t-shirts and buy tickets to see you when live music is possible or attend a live stream that is a ticketed event. All you really need are those 1,000 fans. And right now, everyone is at home, everyone is feeling the loneliness of isolation, and they're looking for a connection. So going back to some of our previous steps, if you can focus on forging that connection and really building this tether to your audience where they feel like they're part of your journey and you feel as though you're part of theirs, you're cheering each other on, you're mourning the sad stuff, you're celebrating the big successes. If you can get to that point, you will slowly begin to accrue 1,000 true fans. Now, I'm not saying that the first 1,000 fans you have will all be true. That's very rarely the case. You're probably going to need to make several thousand, if not tens of thousands, to find 1,000 true fans. But once you get there and you're able to harness them, you can make a decent living. And of course, it's all based on the size of your project. If you're a solo artist and you can get 1,000 true fans that are willing to spend $30 a year on you, that's still a livable wage. You could make that work. But if you're a band with 5 people in it, you might need 5,000 true fans for all of you to pay all of your bills and live comfortably for the rest of your lives. It's going to take time, but it's worth the effort, because again, if you don't really concern yourself with Grammys or being the top artist on the Billboard charts or having 8 million views on every single video that you put out, you don't need to do that. All you really need to do is focus on building relationships with people who are going to take a long-term interest in your creative endeavors. And if you can find 1,000 of them, you're going to be good to go. And I have a feeling that as we get a little bit further away from 2020, we're going to find that we learned a lot more than what I've outlined in this video. But this is a good starting point. If you can take all the lessons that I've outlined here and carry them into the future, you're going to be okay in your career. And if you want even more advice or more tips or just want to understand what's happening in the business of music, click the subscribe button down below, because that's what we do here at Music Biz. And if you've already done that, you have my sincerest thanks, because you make my job possible. And don't worry, we have a lot more content coming soon. But for right now, I just want to leave you with this. If you do nothing else in the coming days, please take care of yourself, because you deserve it.